Every slope, every run is unique. Every ski day is different. Weather conditions change constantly, and every day presents itself with new challenges. Just like in the world of business. Home for me is north of Sweden, in southern Lapland, Tanabi. I think if you'd ask anyone in Sweden, or Scandinavia for that matter, everyone would immediately know where Tanabi is, even if it's just 400 people living here. And it's because Tanabi has produced many of the world's champions in alpine skiing during the Swedish history of alpine skiing. I myself had a dream of becoming a professional skier. I lived not that far from the champion Ingemar Stenmark, just down the road. And I used to go up to what's now known as the Ingemarsbacke and practice whenever I could. Tanabi is a place that forms you. It becomes a part of your identity. And you either stay here or you leave. And I think it's about 50-50. Half of my friends stayed and half went out in the world. I grew up in the snow and doing every sport and activity imaginable that you can do in snow. I would just take my skis, walk up to the ski slope, turn on the lights, and put on the lift. It was that simple. So it makes sense that the first business I started was in the snow, with snowboarding. Back when I was growing up, the career path that you had was either you go into a specific occupation like a doctor, a lawyer, or you work at Ericsson or any of the other big Swedish companies. That never attracted me. I wanted a path that was more individual. I wanted to have more control over my destiny, and there's also more freedom in taking the path unknown. So I decided to start my own business and be an entrepreneur. I developed a product to prevent wrist injuries in snowboarding. I came across some ski injury data, and I noticed that those types of injuries were the ones that usually took you out of the season and you couldn't practice anymore. Together with the university hospital and the orthopedic there, we developed the wrist guard, and it seemed to work. So I left university and my friends and I started to build the business. It was a fantastic experience building that business and doing all of the sales and the production and logistics of it. We took wild risks, but it was really hard to get into Europe. So then a few years into it, I had to start to question, is this viable? Can this actually scale? If e-commerce had been around, I would probably still be doing that, but unfortunately, we had to close it down. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know how I was going to make a living. But I started to become really interested in computers, and they were becoming more prevalent. I was intrigued by the possibilities of what it could create, like in business opportunities. What could it do for efficiency and automation? For some reason, I'm interested in making things more efficient and automated. Maybe because I'm kind of lazy. It's always appealed to me to automate things. I don't like doing unnecessary work. Then word came that there were different kinds of companies starting in Stockholm, and I knew I had to go. So in the late 90s, something started to happen in Stockholm. There was a boom in entrepreneurship around technology and the internet, and anyone who could do a little bit of HTML got a high-paying job. So I got a job as a trainee at a software company in Stockholm. And they were actually building a middleware software that was processing electronic orders. It was actually the beginning of e-commerce. I listened in and I learned. I would have lunch with management. I could get time with the CEO and the leaders of that business. It was an amazing training ground. When they wanted to expand into the US, I was actually picked to go over to Atlanta. Then, in the classical way, a European company that wants to go into the US, but it turns out to be super hard, and the US company crashed and burned, eventually taking down the whole company. But then I decided that I want to build a tech company. So I started to work in different constellations, in startups, building prototypes and doing things. And I spent all of my evenings and weekends with these small companies that didn't really exist. But one of these startups came pretty far, and we even pitched to a venture capital. But venture capital hadn't really started yet. It was around, but it wasn't very well understood. And you had to learn to get to know people and to network. So I did that. And then word spread here in Stockholm that, okay, this guy Pelle, he knows startups and knows how to get venture capital. So I was contacted by another company that was developing a technical encryption product. I wanted to join them. I started to work with them and was able to close the first investment round. We were building encryption for handheld devices. iPhones weren't around, but Palm Pilots were. Encryption products existed, but we had a bigger vision. You should be able to authenticate yourself by using your handheld device. And so we built all of that with 10 of Scandinavia's best encryption developers and security developers. Pieces of that code still runs in the background of what is now known as Bank ID today. So we were too early. The business climate was really poor. 5 years after the dot-com crash. So it was quite tough. We couldn't raise another round. And in the end, we were acquired by another public company. So the streets were burning, so to speak, and it was an exit in the middle of a challenging time. That was my first real break into this space. When I was working on my next venture, that's when I crossed paths with the guys at Keybroker, Fredrik Arnander and Fredrik Holmén. What we were doing at Keybroker as an agency was sort of a new thing. We had a very different offering. We had a performance-based offering. Whereas traditionally, media agencies would just run on their retainer or percentage on the media budget. But we only charged if we delivered actual sales. Our business model pissed off a lot of media agencies because they thought we were kind of destroying their business model. But Keybroker wasn't just a media agency. It was also a playground where we could develop other projects. So this was the time when Facebook advertising came around. And we were very early to start running Facebook advertising for our clients at Keybroker. And I realized that if we're going to deliver Facebook advertising, we'll need a tool to do this at scale. There were tools Facebook provided for free, but they weren't good enough. They weren't scalable. So we started to build a product within Keybroker to do this. It was a bit of a side project, but we were actually one of the first 3 companies in the world to get access to Facebook beta advertising API. Then a little later, a man named Fredrik Skanse came into the picture. We ended up hiring him into Keybroker, and he was assessing the projects in our portfolio. And he thought that this thing we were building for Facebook advertising, that was something we need to pursue. But if we're going to pursue it, it can't be within Keybroker. And that is how the parent to Funnel was born, Qwaya.
Today on 21st Century Television.
Explore state-of-the-art technology.
Qwaya was a great product and achieved close to $100,000 in MRR. Lots of digital marketers loved it. However, like any business, things change and you need to pivot. The issue with Qwaya, for us, was that it was so dependent on Facebook and the access to its API. After one of our many trips back from California, Fredrik and I realized that we can't compete with Facebook. They were building their very own ad management tool and were pouring billions into it. So we asked ourselves, is there something else? And what is that something else? And that's when we realized that we had always experienced a bigger problem of reporting and analyzing cross-channel marketing, which was really hard to do. You can do it in a spreadsheet, but it is tough. We recognized that this was a big problem and a very difficult problem to solve, but it also sounded like a great business idea. So we went back to our board and shared our new vision, which was not something one typically does with investors. The decision to pivot was a shock to everyone involved, and it was a near-death experience for the company. However, Fredrik managed to steer us all through it. From then on, we started to build Funnel from scratch. We had a growing business with Qwaya, but almost overnight, we put all of our efforts into this new idea, this new product, Funnel. And that is what we're continuing to build and invest in today. With 300 plus employees around the world, offices in Stockholm, Boston, Dublin, and now Sydney, we've come a long way. We still have a lot of work to do, and it hasn't been easy. I mean, everything is hard when you're building a business. Everything is a challenge. You first have to convince people of your vision and then get anything moving. You need to bring enough people with you to actually achieve what you want to achieve. And you can never just run on momentum or routine. You need to always be ready for the next phase, the next challenge. You need to be strategizing, trying to stay ahead, ready for a whole different set of challenges. It's like a sport. And you need to be always taking your game to the next level. You need to be learning new things, training. You can never stand still. But I'm very passionate about building something new, doing something maybe no one else has done before. I like the challenge, and I'm comfortable with uncertain outcomes. I don't know, maybe it's the Tanabi in me. I want to create a company where others can learn and have incredible experiences, like I did when I was starting my tech career in the 90s, and I think we have done that. I think Funnel is a fantastic university, a playground for innovation. Quite a number of people have already passed through here, and I'm sure we will see other ventures coming from the Funnel crowd. I think that is super rewarding to see that. Ultimately, we want to build a meaningful and significant company that will hopefully exist for another 100 years.